Good evening and welcome. The meeting of the Cleveland County Board of Education for Monday, June 12th is called to order. And we have Reverend Dale Bird of Eastside Baptist Church for the invocation. Reverend.
Let's pray together. Oh, most gracious Heavenly Father, we just come before you this evening and we welcome you into this place. Father, we thank you for the work that you have done in each of our lives. Lord, for we believe that you created all things, and that means you created us. And we thank you for that work. And whether we believe or not, you did that work for us. And Father, whether we believe it or not also, you did the work of salvation for us when you sent your Son Jesus to the cross on our behalf. And so, God, I thank you for that. And I thank you for our Savior, Jesus Christ. As we welcome you into this meeting, we realize, God, that you have a will for every single thing that goes on in this world. We also realize that every person present here today has a will in their lives. And, Lord, sometimes our will go against yours. When that happens, it's called sin. Lord, may we be repentant of that sin if that's happened today already. And may we be repentant if it happens going forward. And, Lord, we want to honor you tonight. And so, God, I pray that your will would be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we pray this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Fitch, if you'd lead the pledge.
Yes, sir. Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have a few special recognitions tonight. First, I'd like to recognize the Burns High School baseball team. Congratulations to Coach Alex Linhart and the Burns High School team. The Bulldog baseball team won the 2A State Baseball Championship by sweeping the best 2 out of 3 series. As a board and a school system, we're extremely proud of these young men and their coaches, and we'll officially recognize the team at the board's July meeting. Several of the players had a Legion game tonight and other commitments. So let's give a hand to the Bulldogs. Dr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Would like to recognize our finance department, led by our Chief Financial Officer, Rob McDaniel. Rob doesn't like for me to call him out, but I'm going to get him to stand up and come up here in just a minute. Rob, why don't you come on up and stand up? You get to see Rob later, but the Association of School Business Officials International, ASBO, is pleased to award the Cleveland County Board of Education the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. ASBO's International Certificate of Excellence recognizes districts that have met the program's high standards for financial reporting and transparency. The school district earned the Certificate of Excellence for its annual comprehensive financial report for the CAFR for the fiscal year ending in 2022. By participating in this program, school districts demonstrate their commitment to financial transparency. Applicants submit their application for review by a team of financial professionals who provide feedback to improve future documents. If the reports meet the requirements of the program, it may receive the Certificate of Excellence, which we have been awarded. The district's participation in this program can facilitate additional bond ratings and continuing bond disclosure processes. Cleveland County Schools and the Board of Education has participated in the Certificate of Excellence program for the last 8 years, and that continues its commitment to high-quality financial reporting. So we'd like to say congratulations to our finance department for this recognition, and appreciative of Rob's leadership, also the professional work that they do upstairs to make sure all that information is accurate and complete and is given to you in terms of tonight we will present a continuation budget to be able to start the year, but all the financial reporting that's required, we appreciate the work that Rob and his team does. Rob, congratulations.
We need to make him take a picture. I know you'll pay back later. Yes. Thank you, Mr. McDaniel, and your whole team. Our finance team really does an outstanding job. Ms. Benfield, do you have some folks to recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I am very pleased tonight to have with us some of our recent high school graduates and representatives from Atrium Health. We have worked with Atrium Health this year as they have decided to expand their Rise to Success program to Cleveland County. It has been a pleasure to work with Atrium and to now see the results of that work. These students are getting a life-changing opportunity. Thanks to Atrium, these students will continue their education tuition-free while being employed at Atrium Health. The program is for students who are interested in pursuing healthcare careers. Lori Chafee, HR consultant with Atrium Health, and Donna Sandifer, she's a nurse educator with Atrium Cleveland. Lori was intended to be here tonight. She's running just a few minutes late, but I asked Donna and Lori if they would come up and share just a little bit about the program with you. Donna.
Good evening. I'll tell you a little bit about the program. It's called Rise to Success. We are excited to expand it to the Cleveland County region. We've been doing this in Mecklenburg County and Lincoln County for several years, so we're excited that it has come to Cleveland County. The Rise to Success is a sponsorship program that enables high school graduates to earn an associate degree or certification in health-related discipline from a local community college. Tuition, textbooks, activity, fees, and scrubs are all paid by Atrium Health. And while participants are in college, they are hired into an entry-level part-time position. Participants are expected to work for Atrium Health for the duration of their college career, an additional year after completion of their associate degree. Participants are also encouraged to earn their bachelor's degree upon program completion. Participation individuals will have a career coach who will support their academic and work success through the program. Candidates should have plans to obtain either an associate degree or certification in the healthcare-related field, which leads to an associate degree. So these could be, these are not all inclusive, but it could be EMS and paramedic programs, medical assistant, medical lab technology, nursing, occupational physical therapy assistant, pharmacy technology, phlebotomy, radiology, respiratory therapy, ultrasound, and surgical technology. So we're excited to have candidates from all 4 of our local high schools and our early college receiving this award.
Thank you, Donna. So we want to recognize, we have 2 of the 5 students who were chosen for this program in its first year, and I'm going to recognize them. Ladies, if you'll come on up. If you'll just stand up here. And we have with us Ms. Serenity Key, and she is representing Cleveland Early College High School, a graduate of Cleveland Early College High School, chosen for the program. And Miss Abby Howell from Burns High School, who was chosen in the first year of the program. And then, of course, I will mention the names of the others who were chosen. Miss Kinley Sparks, Crest High School. Emily Smith, Kings Mountain High School. She could not be here due to a death in the family. And Miss Victoria Mitchell from Shelby High School were all chosen in the first year. So congratulations, young ladies.
Oh, there's Dr. Shaw.
Congratulations. 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 Congratulations.
We would like to thank Atrium for partnering with Cleveland County Schools, and we have several businesses throughout our county that have similar programs going, and so our kids are getting on-the-job training so they can further their education and career. So board members, you have the agenda before you. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Heard Mr. Humphries. Any questions or discussion on the agenda? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. First is public participation. Mr. Shores, if you would give us a review of that. Do you have that handy?
I do. Public comments should not address any specific confidential student or personnel matter. Specific concerns related to confidential student or personnel matters should be directed to the superintendent or designee. No profanity, vulgar language, or personal abuse against any person will be permitted. The board vests in its chair or other presiding officer's authority to terminate the remarks of any individual when he or she does not adhere to the rules established above. Any person who willfully interrupts or disturbs a board meeting may be directed to leave the meeting by the presiding officer. Any person who refuses to leave may be prosecuted for disrupting a public meeting. Persons appearing before the board are reminded as a point of information that the members of the Cleveland County Board of Education are without authority to act independently as individuals in official matters. Immediate answers are not generally possible and must be deferred pending investigation and consideration by the full board.
Thank you, Mr. Shores. We do have 6 folks who have signed up for public participation. That's just slightly past our allotted time. If there's no objection, we'll proceed with all 6 right now. Okay. First speaker is Marjorie Hooper.
Good evening. A few weeks ago, the school board called for a special meeting about the school prank/vandalism that happened on May 18th at Burns High School. The chair said that a code of ethics violation had been committed by Mr. Ronnie Grigg and Mr. Danny Blanton in regards to giving information to the media that was given to them by the staff and teachers of Burns High. The staff and teachers were upset at what they saw when they returned to work on Friday, May 19th. 2 members of the board were told they could not address anything about the school prank/vandalism, and as a matter of fact, they were both called out of order by the chairman when they mentioned it. As this mock court continued, Mr. Blanton asked that the chair be censured for revealing his closed sessions information in an email to the College Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees member voices concern on Facebook about what had happened with the prank and vandalism. The chair then turned the meeting over to the vice chair and recused himself. And later, when given the 3 minutes to talk, the chair decided to read his email in question dated May 26, which violated the request of the school attorney and the chairman himself for revealing information about the school prank/vandalism in its entirety. And the chair was never called out of order by the vice chair, as Mr. Danny Blanton and Mr. Ronnie Grigg were. You call that double standard. The chair then claims on camera that he couldn't have violated the closed sessions information because he sent his email before the board had ever had closed sessions, which was a complete untruth. The closed session was on May 22nd, so the chair's letter was dated on May 26th, so that violated your own code of ethics. So the chair lied on camera, and once again, that's not the only lie that was ever told to the public. This board spent over $300,000 to have a firm come here and tell us what you wanted us to hear, that there was no growth in Cleveland County. That was a lie. The word for that is propaganda. Our history also tells us that there were people that censored others that spoke out against their agenda. There's a name for them. That name's Nazi.
The next speaker, all I have is a first name, Connie.
Tonight, my name is going to be Connie. It's going to be short for consequences. I am the queen of the wrecking crew that you have so aptly named us behind our backs. Think we don't know, but we do. Mr. Sperling, you made a comment 2 weeks ago for the emergency meeting, honoring your little heroism for your service that you've done. But you know what? You just negated all of it. Your integrity means nothing because you said the consequences have actions, good or bad. They do. But guess what? I'm here to be your consequence tonight. I'm your Connie. So therefore, January and February, every single last one of you voted to change the schedule for the school in violation of a direct law. Not a rule, but a law. So what was your consequence, Mr. Sperling? Zero. Nothing. Nothing happened to any of you. So I'm going to echo what my friend out here just said, double standard. So guess what? Your integrity is shot with me. And I'm a veteran as well. And I don't go around boasting about that. Okay. Mr. Shores, you did a pretty good job of becoming the chair when Mr. Queen recused himself, up until the time that the attorney, Ms. Swink, screwed up. You needed to fix her screw up. Because when you asked the question of her, is the email that Mr. Queen just read in violation of the Code of Conduct and the Code of Ethics, she referred back and said, no, Mr. Ledford's email is not in violation. That wasn't the question. You asked about Mr. Queen's, not Mr. Ledford's. They were two different emails, two separate incidences. So you screwed the pooch, dropped the ball, and so did you, Missy, and you're an attorney. So you're all getting called out. I'm tired of this. You're a bully. I've had it up to here with you. And you are threatening parents, grandparents, and citizens that anytime that we don't agree with anything you say and we come to you and we say, hey, look, we've got a problem, you threaten to have us arrested or removed. And that is wrong. And I'm going to tell you one thing right here now. I am not going anywhere, and I'm going to be here every single time that I can be here to be your Connie Queen of the wrecking crew.
You can stop right there. You're calling in personal. You're done.
Excuse me? I have a
you're
First
calling
Amendment
in
right.
person.
I
No,
have a First
you're done.
Amendment right
Ma'am,
to
you need
say
sit-
what I want
You have a First
to
Amendment
you.
right on the front steps, not here. This is a
Oh,
limited
no,
public
no.
forum.
I most certainly
No.
do, Mr. Queen.
Your time has expired. You need, Officer Hill, if you would help Ms. Walton.
Officer Hill, do you want to do that? Officer Hill, do you want to do that?
You have been asked to leave.
I'm not leaving, and he is not removing me. And I will make sure of that.
Officer Hill, I have asked for her to be removed. No, sir. We will not proceed until Ms. Walton leaves. You knew what you were doing when you made the comment.
I did not, absolutely.
You are not going to call out personal. Yeah. Yes, and you know my wife's name, so it's time for you to leave.
Your wife?
It's time.
I'm talking about your
It's.
Does he own this building? Yes. Isn't it public business? And I told you, I would sit down and be quiet, not say anything else, but I said
for a recess.
All right, I'm calling for a 10-minute recess. Here's Nanette Linhart.
Good evening. I heard the sound system was fixed. Greg Scholl said it was, so I hope everybody can hear me. If not, I'm going to speak louder. So I got a few definitions. Transparency is the quality or state of being transparent. It is perhaps most commonly used in a figurative way to refer to a state in which things are free from any attempt to hide something. As in Mr. and Mrs. John Q. Public were told one thing, but the facts proved different. Slander, the utterance of false charges or misrepresentations which defame and damage another's reputation. Lie is a false statement made with deliberate intent to deceive, an intentional untruth. Go along to get along, to conform to general expectations so as not to disrupt or endanger one's sense of security or belonging. Truth, the body of real things, real events, real facts. Independent thinker is someone who is not swayed by the consensus view. And see something with your own eyes, to see something yourself, especially when it is something that you would not believe to exist or be true if you did not see it for yourself. Untruth, words like untruth are delusion, error, fallacy. Falsehood, hallucination. Something that is untrue, a falsehood, is a lie. Deception, as in deceit, the inclination or practice of misleading others through lies or trickery. Cover-up, to suppress, to keep from being publicly known. And bullying is repeated aggression, harassment, threats, or intimidation when one person has greater status, control, or power over another. I just thought we needed to hear those definitions for everybody tonight. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Robert Williams.
I'll speak up too. My name is Robert A. Williams. I've never actually given this kind of information before, but I think it's appropriate now. I've got 42 years of HVAC engineering experience. I've worked on projects in 13 states and 5 countries. Projects include design, construction, operations, and maintenance. I've worked with the U.S. Department of Defense, U.S. Department of Energy, international corporations including Westinghouse, Toshiba, and General Electric, 9 major utility companies in the United States, and several overseas, 4 major international construction companies. I know good management when I see it. What I don't see with this $1 million Shelby High School vocational building HVAC renovation project and the Malcolm Brown Auditorium is good management. I see at least 4 levels of top Cleveland County Schools management that is incompetent in their education, training, and work history to be involved in these projects. Example, this is the $1 million project right here, one sheet of paper. There are 10, it's about the Shelby High School vocational building, HVAC renovation. Out of this half page of text, there's 10 words that actually try to describe the project. If you go to the operations report, Friday, June the 2nd, you got about the same amount. Just a few words. The Malcolm Brown Auditorium Controls Project. Well, back up. Let's go back to this $1 million thing here. If you look at the bottom, the total amount, the numbers are wrong. You can figure it out for yourself. I don't have but 24 seconds left. The Malcolm Brown Auditorium Project is only 4 words. The controls are obsolete. The and are. Take them out, you got 2 words. I don't know how much that project is going to cost, because in your handout you didn't provide the information. To sum it up, I would
Mr.
say
Williams, your time
vote
has
for this
expired.
project. You vote for this project at your own
Mr.
risk.
Williams, your time's expired.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Tom Menowitz.
Thank you, gentlemen. My name's Tom Menowitz. I am a proud graduate of Burns High School. But that's not what I'm here for today. I wanted to bring up 2 main topics. Number one does have to do with Burns High School, but it's just recognizing the Burns High baseball team as co-conference champions this year, along with the 2A state champions. I know you did mention that a little while ago, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to point out that these are great young men with awesome coaches that care about them as individuals as well as student athletes. There's a tremendous amount of community pride in that Burns district for these guys and their accomplishments on the field. They had a 28-4 record this year, which is an amazing accomplishment. The main reason I'm here, though, is to actually thank every single one of you. Mr. Fitch, Mr. Sperling, Mr. Blanton, Mr. Humphreys, Mr. Queen, Mr. Shores, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Bridges, and Mr. Grigg. Although rarely would I see eye to eye with every single one of you, I think what you guys do is a thankless job, a thankless duty. No matter what you do, there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with it, and they're going to voice that opinion to it. You guys have arrows shot at you every single day and every single week. Whether they're justified or not doesn't really matter. You have to sit there and put up with it. So I'm here to just say thank you for your service. I don't always agree with everything that you guys say, but I thank you for the time that you take to try to put together a thoughtful response and to try to keep decorum whenever possible. I give my time back. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Jenny Hassler. Did I get that right?
Hi. Good evening. You met me a couple meetings ago, but as a brief reminder, my name is Jenny Hassler. I'm a Cleveland County native, and I'm a graduate of Crest High School. I have a small child, and I just celebrated the birth of a new baby niece who will also be attending Cleveland County schools in a few years. So what is happening in and with our schools could not be more important to me. I recently spoke with my dear friend Claire, who has children at Jefferson and who serves on the PTA, about the decision to list 2 of our elementary schools as surplus property. I learned that Jefferson is already experiencing overcrowding, and some teachers, such as art and music, are being forced to share a classroom space. So I talked to my friends who are teachers, and then I talked to some parents. And then I had a conversation with some conservative friends, including Mr. Williams here. And over and over and over, I heard the same thing. Our schools are already crowded. I don't understand how selling 2 of them is going to make anything better. So I went and I looked up the facility study that was ordered, and I'm not a paid expert, but I can critically think pretty all right, thanks to that Cleveland County Schools education. And what I read was the greatest in-migration in this county will happen in the 0 to 9 age range. Elementary enrollment will slowly increase. 8% of seats in the Shelby School area were available before 2 schools were closed. In my time at Crest Middle School, I was actually one of a handful of students who got to double up on math one year, so we would be a little bit ahead, and the math ain't mathin'. So back to my conversation with Claire. She told me that once upon a time, she was promised that there would be a public forum for the community that would to help fully understand the decision to list these schools as surplus property. I am very curious why that has not happened. If the board, minus a couple of holdouts, are so sure that this facility study got it right, and you're so sure that you interpreted it correctly, then it shouldn't be very difficult to defend it. So I urge you tonight to make that meeting happen. Please put my mind at ease. Put the mind of other parents in this county at ease. Because right now, I'm not just concerned for my child, I'm concerned for generations of children to come. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to amend the agenda to move the closed session to 4.02, and that will take a 2/3 vote.
All right, we have a motion to amend the agenda to move closed session to the next item, 4.02. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that you, Mr. Spurlin?
Yes.
Any discussion or comments? Mr. Blanton?
What are we going to closed session?
It'd be the same closed session we had scheduled at the end.
Why are we doing that?
Mr. Humphries made the motion.
I'd have made a motion like that, I'd have been shot out of here. Go
Any other
ahead.
questions or comments?
I think,
If this is approved, we'd have to entertain a motion to go into closed session.
okay.
I think that's probably where you were headed.
We have to list the general statute. before we
Right.
go-
All this is doing is changing the order. Any other questions or comments? So this moves closed session to the next item. Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? That carries 6-3, and it receives the majority it needs. So, Mr. Shores, you have a motion to enter closed session.
Okay. I'll make a motion, we enter closed session
What?
pursuant to general
Is
statute.
our attorney needing to say something? Or you
No.
need to speak?
Okay,
He's
yeah,
got it.
I've got, I just want to make sure we had the statute, yeah. General Statute 143-318.11 subsection A6 and A3 for the purpose of discussing personnel matters and consulting with our attorney.
So we have a motion by Mr. Shores. Is there a second?
Second.
I think I heard Mr. Fitch. Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? That carries 7-2. All right. Do we have a motion to return to open session?
I make a motion, we turn to open session.
Motion by Mr. Blanton, second by Mr. Grigg. Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. In closed session, the board discussed the superintendent's evaluation. The board approved a contract extension of 1 year, which will go to June 30th of '27. The board also approved a 4.3% raise, and the board approved a contract extension for the executive team. Can we post that? Can you expand that, please? So that's the list of the executive team, and each of these were approved for a 1-year contract extension. And that was the end of closed session. So to pick back up,
Wait a minute, you not tell how the vote was?
no. So then we have, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. There are 6 sets of minutes. So we have the minutes of May 8th closed session, the May 8th business session, the May 22nd called session, the May 22nd called closed session, May 25th training session, and the May 30th called session. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve all.
Motion by Mr. Fitch. Second by Mr. Taylor. Any questions or discussion?
Yes, all those, everything that was said in all those minutes was not recorded, where you could tell what went on completely. So that's my discussion.
Any other questions or discussion? Those in favor of the 6 sets of minutes, if you would raise your hand. Any opposed? That carries 7-2. So next is committee reports, finance and personnel. Mr. Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. June 1st, the Finance and Personnel Committee met. Rob McDaniel gave an update on the state budget. Both the House and Senate have presented budgets and are now in process to determine a budget both groups can agree and send to the governor. We're hopeful this process will be completed in June. Mr. McDaniel shared that Cleveland County Schools will be spending fund balance in the month of June. $3.4 million of the fund balance was projected for this school year, and while we do not think the full amount will be needed, Mr. McDaniel is projecting $3 million will be spent. Our current fund balance is $6.4 million, so this will cut our available fund balance in half and may require adjustments to the 2023-24 budget proposal, since $3.9 million of the fund balance was appropriated but may not be available. Mr. McDaniel will bring an interim budget resolution for 2023-24 for full board approval tonight. The interim budget will be a 75% of the current budget and will simply allow the system to operate July 1 while we wait for the state budget to be approved. An ESSER funding update was shared on paper with the committee. Dr. Wampler shared the hiring was in full swing for the 2023-2024 school year. Ginger Jackson gave a teacher laptop update with recommendation to the committee to do a teacher MacBook refresh for next year based on good pricing and great buyback amount for the current MacBooks. This refresh will be paid for through a combination of ESSER and Title I funds. This Mac recommendation was unanimously approved by the committee and will go to the full board tonight for approval. Dr. Fisher asked for feedback related to a committee schedule, and all members agreed that Thursdays at noon work well for the committee meeting. Dr. Fisher will have the schedule of the board will have schedules for the board members soon. The committee discussed the payments of district supplements and various payment options. Membership in the North Carolina School Board Association and the benefits of membership were discussed. With no new business, the meeting was adjourned. Next meeting will be July 22nd at 12 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Shores. We do have a few action items. First is the MacBook purchase that will be directly from Apple. The total of that contract is $1,456,790.56. Again, that'll be paid for out of ESSER funds and Title I. It's noted that the unit cost of the computers is less now than it was in 2020, and also the buyback on our older computers is higher than it was in 2020. So that does come from committee, recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. The interim budget resolution, again, as Mr. Shores explained, this will be 75% of our current budget. This will allow us to start July 1. Once the state and county budgets are approved, we will have a final budget presented to the board. That does come from committee, recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion on that? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. Then we have our personnel report. There are 3 items here. We have our substitute list, the renewable contracts, and our typical personnel report. Don't believe we have anyone that has to recuse this month. What's the pleasure of the board? Mr. Bridges?
Second.
Second by Mr. Taylor. Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. On to educational programs, Mr. Humphries.
So I call the meeting, June the 2nd meeting to order. Sarah Thomas from Cleveland Community College was a guest at the meeting to speak about the TRIO grant partnership. TRIO is a federal 5-year grant between Cleveland County Schools and Cleveland Community College, and it involves 500 secondary school students. TRIO has success coaches in our middle and high schools, as well as Cleveland Early College High School. The focus of TRIO includes career exploration, financial aid, and the post-secondary application process. TRIO requested a link to their site be added to the Cleveland County Schools website, and Dr. Scholl has added that link. Dr. Hunnell shared that the partnership has been successful and is free to the district. Paula Peeler, Office of School Readiness Director, presented Head Start information to the committee. The committee previewed the financial reports, credit card summary, in-kind donations, and etc. Mrs. Peeler reviewed the stabilization grants that are now available to the school system. The grant could potentially help with playground repairs. Mrs. Peeler reviewed the system's cost for playground equipment repair. The committee discussed cost, reasons for repair, and so on. The committee discussed funding sources. If a school only has pre-K, no Head Start, state pre-K funds must be utilized. The committee discussed the possibility of a subcommittee being formed to study the recurring cost and ways to be more proactive and possibly reduce cost. Mr. Humphrey, I congratulated Mrs. Peeler on her Head Start pre-K success this year with literacy scores. The committee unanimously recommended the Head Start documentation for board approval. Wendy Fitch presented the visually impaired contract with the committee. For the 22-23 school year, Cleveland County Schools contracted with a private provider for VI. The committee decided to also have Happy Vision Services, LLC, provide mobility services in addition to VI services for the 23-24 school year. The contract's hourly rate has not changed. However, there are additional services. The committee unanimously recommended the contract for board approval. Tracy Gillespie presented information about the alternative accountability system to the committee. Mrs. Gillespie explained that the alternative accountability options are allowed only for Turning Point Academy and North Shelby School. The committee unanimously agreed to continue with the district's current model of implementing option B as described in the state's rubric and recommended this for approval at the next Board of Education meeting. Rhonda Benfield presented the summer CTE programming and local CTE plan. Mrs. Benfield highlighted that this was the second summer of programs or camps, and approximately 250 students will be served this year. Culinary camp is new this year, and it began on June the 5th at LeGrand. Mrs. Benfield reviewed the other camps that will be offered this summer. Mrs. Benfield also previewed Cleveland County Schools' local CTE plan, now moving into year 2 of implementation. The plan includes an analysis of performance data from the previous 2 years and states that Cleveland County Schools has met or exceeded 90% in all 8 benchmarks. The local CTE plan was recommended for approval, and the committee unanimously supported the recommendation for approval at the next Board of Education meeting. Sandy Handbrick presented a plan to utilize PRC 191 funds through a partnership with communities and schools. Cleveland County Schools will contract CIS services with this grant money. Mrs. Hamrick discussed the partnership and how Cleveland County Schools has used this opportunity to assist with dropout prevention, including hiring re-engagement coaches to help students who have or may be thinking about dropping out of school. The committee unanimously agreed and recommended that the plan be approved at the next board meeting. And with no new business, the meeting was adjourned. The next Education Program Committee meeting is scheduled for June the 23rd at 11 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Humphries. There are several action items in educational programs. First is the 23-24 Alternative Accountability Model. Again, this applies to North Shelby School and Turning Point, and the committee has recommended we stay with option B, which that is based on the overall school score is 20% student persistence, 20% school achievement, and 60% growth. That does come from committee recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. Next is ESSER 3 Re-Engagement Initiative. This is a contract with communities in school to provide additional dropout prevention services. The total of that contract is $120,269. Again, that comes from ESSER. Any questions or discussion?
Is that above what we are already given, that
Yes, sir.
160?
Yes, sir. It's for additional services. Mr. Shores?
Yes. I'd like to publicly thank Dr. Fisher. If this was your creativity, good job. When we on the Finance Committee looked, I believe it might have been $130,000. It said missing children. And I think me and Mr. Fitch and Mr. Bridges kind of looked at each other and like, how are we going to spend that money? So this was obligated to find missing kids. And we was just racking our brains trying to think of how, but whoever came up with this plan, Dr. Fisher, to be able to spend this is ESSER money, good job to you, because I never would have thought we'd have figured out a way to spend it. Thank you.
Well, and spend it on something worthwhile.
Right.
Any other questions or discussion? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. Mr. Blanton, I didn't, okay. That carries 9-0.
Is that the only place that is that our best place?
That's the
only Yes. thing
you could use it for. We didn't think it was going to be
Okay, all right.
Next is our Head Start action items. These are our typical Head Start reports. You have 2 financial reports and 2 policy council summaries. Does come from committee recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. Then we have the CTE plan. This is just a plan. It's not costing anything, so that's a good thing. And this comes from committee recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion? I think we're seeing every month how our CTE is growing. We're recognizing them every month. So those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. Then we have the Happy Vision Services contract. This provides services for visually impaired. The hourly rate is $85 per hour with a not-to-exceed amount of $87,000. Comes from committee, recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion? All right, those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. So next we have our operations report. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The June 2nd Operations Committee meeting was called to order by Greg Taylor. Dr. Fisher shared an update on the Shelby High Fieldhouse project. Bernie Drake with Shelby High Booster Club and Shelby High Athletic Director Mike Wilbanks attended the meeting and also shared an update with the committee. Dr. Fisher recommends payment of the fourth invoice from T.C. Strickland Construction for $77,756.37, which is covered in part from the previously allotted SCIF grant funds. The committee unanimously approved this fourth payment, and it will go to the full board for approval in June. Dr. Fisher also recommended a reallocation of some SCIF grant funds to the Shelby High School field project in the amount of $200,000. This reallocation of SCIF funds does not impact the funds set aside for press box projects for Burns Crest or Kings Mountain High School. The committee unanimously agreed with this reallocation. Dr. Jennifer Wampler and Chip Childers provided the capital projects report to the committee. This report will be attached to the board's agenda as an information item. Dr. Wampler shared two recommendations related to HVAC needs at Shelby High School. Both of these projects would be funded out of a combination of ESSER and capital dollars. The first project is to address the HVAC needs in the vocational building through the purchase and replacement of HVA units and a new chiller. This project was part of the original HVAC project bid out by CMTA and won by Beam Construction for Shelby High, but was cut during the reduction of scope process. The second project is for new HVAC controls in Malcolm Brown Auditorium. The current controls are obsolete. This will be considered a sole source request because Schneider controls are needed for compatibility and consistency with controls in the rest of the instructional buildings at Shelby High School. These recommendations were unanimously approved by the committee and will go to the full board for approval in June. Rob McDaniel shared a surplus declaration from Shelby Middle School. New equipment has been purchased, so this equipment is no longer needed. The committee unanimously supported this request and will be taken to the full board for approval in June. Daniel Sherman gave an update on the MEP HVAC projects at Burns Crest, Shelby, and Kings Mountain High Schools. This summer, the work on these projects is very aggressive at each site and are in full swing. Burns and Crest will be moving into the office areas. The construction will be moving into the office areas. Jamie Currier gave a child nutrition update. Summer feeding programs will start June 5th at Kings Mountain Intermediate, Shelby Middle, Burns Middle, and Turning Point, and will run on weekdays from 11:30 to 12:30. For summer feeding, children up to the age of 18 can eat for free. Ginger Jackson shared a technology update. Technology is busy this summer with the HVAC projects at high schools and other technology projects throughout the district. Technology is also busy with student Chromebook collection and distribution to schools in preparation for the next school year. Dr. Wampler shared that the system is moving to a custodial warehouse system run through Webb Chemical starting next year. Mr. Sherman shared some numbers related to paving tracks at Shelby, Burns, and Crest High Schools. This may be a consideration for a new SCIF grant application. David Pless shared a transportation update. New transportation director will be recommended to the board for approval under the personnel report in June. The work order system for maintenance is moving from School Dude to a CCS technology-created system starting in July of '23. Dr. Wampler shared the plan to relocate the Division II maintenance in Kings Mountain to Kings Mountain High School and Beth Ware Elementary starting in late July. With no additional business, the meeting was adjourned. The next Operations Committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, June 23rd at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. There are several items for action. First is the vocational heating and air project at Shelby High School. This replaces the units on the vocational building. This was part of the original bid that Beam Construction gave us originally. We have found enough ESSER funds to accomplish this. The contract is $968,988 plus a $31,012 contingency for an even $1 million, and that will be paid for out of ESSER and may need some maintenance funds. That is coming from committee, recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Vine.
Yes, I can't be a part of that operations, y'all know, so I can't ask questions then, and I have to just go along or listen to what they have to say. The $200,000, is that above, well, we're going to get to that one.
What, 200?
Yeah,
The
we're not,
Shelby High
we're not
School.
on that action item
Oh,
yet.
yeah, we're not there yet.
Would you-
So
Okay.
We're on the
Well,
vocational building project.
just want to let everybody know that I can't be a part of it, and, but I got some questions when we go down that list.
Any other questions or discussion? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? Carries 9-0. Next is the Malcolm Brown Auditorium Control renovation. The existing Teletrol controls are obsolete. This contract would be with Schneider. They're already on site working in the rest of the buildings, so we were able to get a little bit better pricing. So this is $123,500 plus $6,500 contingency for a total of $130,000. And again, that'll come out of ESSER funds. Any questions or discussion?
I got a question on that one. Is that part of our original repairs of this $12 million that we are spending, say, at each one of those high schools?
No, this was not in the original bid for the heating and air projects.
Could we have took that money and put with some of that other, because the ESSER fund, by my understanding, you could use it on heating and air, is that correct?
Yes, and that's what it's
Okay.
being used for here.
Have we not run short on some funds here and yonder, then we could have took that and helped for that shortness?
That's what we're doing with this.
Wait a minute, no, you're
well,
something
I'm
that they didn't,
I'm trying to answer your question.
okay?
This was not included in the original bid because we didn't think there was money available. Because the projects have gone so well and we've been able to recapture contingency, we now have the money available to do this extra project. So we're doing, I think, exactly what you asked.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions or discussion? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. Next is the surplus declaration. This is for a 2003 model Gator and a 2004 mower. I don't remember the brand name on the mower. This will be surplus from Shelby Middle School. They do have replacement equipment already. Any questions or discussion? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. Next is the SCIF payment to TC Strickland for the Shelby Fieldhouse. This is invoice number 4. Then the amount of $77,756.37 would be paid for out of that SCIF grant for the athletics improvements. This comes from committee, recommended for approval. Any questions or discussion?
Yes. Did that leave that balance of $40-something thousand that was discussed the month before?
Well, it uses up to 40 and it goes over the 900 by about 30 or 33,000. 32,000.
That's a lot of money. In other words, so when the month before last, see, I couldn't hear this one because I couldn't be there. I got voted out. We voted in that meeting that we would give them that grant, but we wanted to see a itemized statement of how the money came in and how the money went out. And then there was a balance of 40-something or 30-something thousand dollars. There was a balance meeting before last. After we wrote that one check, there was gonna be a balance of $30-something thousand,
It was 40-something, but,
or 40-something thousand. 43, was that it?
well, if I may, the SCIF grant was $4.9 million. 1.25 were allocated to Crest and Burns for press boxes, concession stands, bathrooms. 1 million was allocated to Kings Mountain for a press box. 900,000 was allocated to Shelby for the field house. There were other line items in there. There was money allocated for stadium lights at the football fields. So the stadium lights did not cost as much at Shelby and Crest as anticipated. So that's the $200,000 that was reallocated to the Shelby Fieldhouse. So their new allocation is 1.1, which is in line with the other 3 schools. After that last payment, invoice number 3, there was 40-some-odd thousand left out of the 900. So with approval of this invoice, it'll get us to 932, and that's still under our 1.1 that we have changed the allocation. Did I hit all that right?
Yes, sir.
Well, but we still, did we appropriate more than was agreed to? We had to.
Was agreed
If we
to
give
by-
them $200,000 more. If you save money at one place, that don't mean you can just go spend it at another place, just go ahead and give it to them because we saved. That's good business.
Well, it's also a grant that money comes here, and if we don't spend it, we send it back. So it was sent to us for athletics, and that's what it's being used for.
Do we have anything, that was a desperate need?
Well, I think you could come up with a long list of needs that we need.
Well, have we got a prioritized list?
That was it.
The grant
Okay.
is specifically written for those types of things, so we can't just say, we're gonna go spending on something else as a need. The grant was specifically written for that stuff.
And
Well,
as
I know that-
understand you have applied for other additional SCIF grants, and we just don't know if those are coming yet.
Well, I know these bathrooms on visitor sides, they're awful. And, I mean awful. And if the booster group was supposed to put funds together, to help pay for this bill that is still owed to Strickland Construction, I don't think there's much any important than a bathroom that needs to be fixed. I'd like to see our visitors have a nice place to sit too.
Any other questions or discussion? Those in favor of the invoice number 4 to TC Strickland, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? That carries 9-0. This last item did not make it to committee in time, so we approved sometime back the purchase of a new school bus. This financing agreement is just checking off the next block. It means that we can issue the PO to get the bus purchased. It's not spending any more money. We've already approved the purchase. This is putting the paperwork in place so the state can pay us back. Did I explain that correctly? Okay. So we do need a motion and a second on this one.
I'll make a motion and we approve that. And then I got a question.
Motion by Mr. Blanton, second by Mr. Bridges. Any questions or discussion on that?
Not on that, but I've got a question in our operations thing.
Okay. Any questions on the bus financing agreement? All right, those in favor, if you'd raise your hand.
On the bus.
That carries 9-0. Okay, your question?
In operations, and I would have brought this up if I could have been there. We got a sale group and a pre-K group at Falston School. And they're out in the old agriculture building. And they have to walk from here to the other side of the road just about it, or at least to the road, whether it's raining, shining, sleeting, or snowing, multiple times. And they've been asked, not just by this, not by this board, I don't guess, but I've heard numerous of times that they need an awning put up. And if we can find any funds anywhere, it'd be nice, because those pre-K kids, you know, and they get wet, and those cell kids, you know, and we got to have those particular rooms, they meet the state requirements, you know, for that cell group and everything like that. And so I just needed to get brought out so the committee can talk about it at their next meeting, because I can't be there
Dr. Fisher,
neither.
could you add that to the next operations committee, have a discussion on it? Next is our policy committee report.
Huh?
Mr. Humphries.
I can't get nobody. Hell, you know that.
Go ahead, Mr. Humphries.
Okay. The May 30th meeting of the Policy Committee was called to order. Dr. Fisher shared that the digital citizenship courses highlighted by Sandy Hamrick at the last committee meeting are ready for use. These courses will be assigned to high school students for the start of school in 23-24. Attorney Leah Sink shared that she had heard positive feedback regarding the courses for the students. No other committee members have received feedback regarding the policy. The policy will be presented to the full board for a second read and recommended for approval at the June 12th board meeting, which is tonight. Attorney Sink led the policy committee in a review of policies 2115, 16, 2120, 22, and 23 as a part of the committee's ongoing review of the board's policy manual. No suggestions or edits were made. And with no new business, the meeting was adjourned. The next policy committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June the 20th at noon.
Thank you, Mr. Humphries. We do have one action item that is the policy 4318, which is the use of cell phones, and then corresponding changes to 4310, the Code of Student Conduct. And I've asked Dr. Fisher just to give us an overview of those, just so the public knows what those changes are. Dr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm going to focus on policy 4318. That's where the major change is. The change in the policies, the code of conduct is really just in response to this. So the part of the red is new parts of the policy that really restates some of the things that were already said and just rephrase that a different way. Ginger, if you will scan up just a little bit to the second paragraph on the bottom, A2 right there. The big thing of this policy is really changed. In the past, we had in our policy that devices should not be activated, used, displayed, or visible during the instructional day or as otherwise directed by school rules, school personnel. So there was a lot of flexibility in that. So this policy has been revamped, and you can read that. I won't read it to you, but the important part there is the bottom section number 2. You know, where prior to using cell phones during lunch, students must complete an annually required CCS student course on cell phones and appropriate use. We believe that, you know, we don't need to be using the cell phones during the school day. That was the direction of the committee. However, during lunch, they can be used only after students take an approved course about cell phones, responsible use. That is being developed through Sandy Hamrick. Neptune Navigate is a course. Those students will be doing that at the beginning of school. Once that happens, then after a period of time, they will be able to use cell phones during lunch. Again, that is an incentive. It can be pulled back. It's not something that is guaranteed. It can be pulled back. But regardless, we believe that the education component of responsible use of social media and cell phones is an important part of this, regardless of what we do with cell phones. Students don't just use cell phones from 8 to 3. They use them outside of school, and we feel like we need to be responsible in teaching some good social media and digital use skills for our students.
Any questions for Dr. Fisher on that? Mr. Black?
Is all 4 schools going to have the same, it says here, principal's distraction and permission to cell phone during lunch and stuff like that? Shouldn't we have all of our schools the same? And no question about that. Instead of, because if you say one school, by letting just the principal say that, well, that principal might say, it's all right for mine, and then this, and then there we go, we're starting a conflict. If they're all the same, then there can't be nothing said.
Well, I think that's the point here. They all are the same. They can use them at lunch at the principal's discretion once they complete the annually required CCS course.
Right, but the way we've got it wrote there, if that principal wants to change, that principal could change it if they choose to do so.
That is correct, and we looked at that, and the committee believed that strongly that we had the opportunity, if you had things going on at one school, that you need to restrict that ability to use a cell phone during lunch, you could do that. So something happening at one school should not dictate what happens at the other school.
Well, that's a true statement, but this is going to be added to 4310 or whatever to the bottom of it. So are we following? I'd like to ask that question to the chair or to the board. So we're going to follow this policy?
Yes.
We're going to follow it. All the way. Have we been following it? No, not 4310's not a new policy. 4310's been in our
That's the
books
code
for a
of
long
student
time.
conduct, and what has been added is consequences for not using cell phones properly.
Yeah, but
That
what
has been
about
added.
the policy that it's falling under, the code of conduct?
That's 4318 is where the actual use of cell phones is outlined.
We use policy 4310 every day of the school year.
So we follow 4310?
Code of student conduct, yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I needed, that's what I wanted to hear, that we follow it.
Any
Okay.
other questions on the policy changes?
I'd just like to make a comment, that there was a lot of discussion in the committee about this, and I think several just wanted to do away with cell phones completely in schools. But we understand that kids or young adults are going to use cell phones at home. And what are we in the business of doing? We're in the business of educating. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're going to be the first school system in the state of North Carolina that's going to require an education on cell phones, but prior to being able to use that.
I'm not aware of anybody else, correct?
And I think that is phenomenal. I talked with, she was at our last education meeting. I talked with Sandy Hamrick. There's a whole block on digital citizenship. There's a whole block on cyberbullying. There's, I think, 4 or 5 different blocks that covers a lot of things that a lot of people have been asking for. Does this fix everything? No, it sure don't. But like the superintendent said, if you got a major problem going on with Crest, or I'm just using Crest, I can use Crest, I graduated from Crest, so, and there's a problem going on at Crest, that principal can say, no cell phones, period. There's no need to punish Burns, Kings Mountain, and Shelby for something that's going on at one school. But I'm very proud to say that I think we're going to be the first school system that's going to educate kids, because that's our job. I mean, I think there's a lot we need to be educating them on, but these cell phones are just, they're poison to a lot of young people. And I think a lot of young people need education on it, and that's what we're in the business of doing.
Anyone else?
I'd like to say one more thing.
Okay.
Well, I wish that we would study this just a little more before we approve this as a whole board instead of just a committee, personally.
Well,
On
it's
this,
been available for a month.
huh?
It's been available for a month as a first read. So, all right, thank you, Dr. Fisher.
Yeah, that's the way you're going to put it.
So we have 4 policies coming to the board for approval, recommended from committee. That'd be 3 sections of 4310. There's a 4310 for elementary, middle, and high school, and then 4318 is the use of cell phones and wireless communication devices. So that's coming from committee, recommended for approval. Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? That carries 8 to
I'd
1.
like to ask a question. So you've made the statement that there's 3. So that means we're supposed to follow them things, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're supposed to follow them.
Yeah, it was 8 to 1.
Huh?
Were you raising your hand for a question, or did you intend to vote against the policy?
I'm voting against the policy. I'm voting, well, I'll vote for the policy there, but I'm not voting on that telephone one right now. But the other 3, that 4310, I'll vote on them.
They were introduced as a group, so if you vote for, that's approving all of them, or you can vote against. That's your prerogative,
Why can't we separate them?
because it's already been moved and seconded by the committee.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we separate them.
We've already taken the vote. So you
Wait a minute. We done one last week.
But we've already
Can I
taken
amend
the
it?
vote. I'm willing to change your vote from a nay to a positive if that's what you want, but the vote's already been taken.
Unfortunately, the votes are.
How did we vote that last month, the last
It
meeting we
doesn't
had
matter,
then?
that comment's out of order. We got to move on.
Why? We stayed in yonder hour.
Mr. Blakey, in the.
Whoa,
Because it's-
you let Mr., whoa, y'all let Mr.,
It's already been asked and answered. I'm willing to change your vote if you would like it changed.
leave it as it is.
All right. Motion carries 8
You're
to
wrong.
1. Thank you. Next, we have the Safety Committee report.
Call me
Mr.
out of
Finch.
order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The meeting was called to order. Dr. Greg Scholl gave an update on the summer safety plans and safe school plans for the upcoming school year. Dr. Scholl discussed the timeline for updates throughout the year. During the staff report, Sandy Hammer provided a See Something, Say Something update regarding school administrative and team changes, her Gaggle research regarding possible retainer for student services, and the updates of Neptune Navigate supporting the recent cell phone policy. Lieutenant Daniel Howell talked about the Summer Star Camp and how the camp is organized and operated by school resource officers and their team of high school volunteer counselors. The SROs will operate 6 individual one-week camps throughout the summer, providing fun opportunities for students to cultivate worthwhile, lasting relationships with law enforcement. Dr. Scholl gave an update on the end-of-cycle plans for the final steps of closing out school safety grant. Ginger Jackson then provided an update on security cameras and the sequence of continuing the installation update plan throughout the summer. For additional convenience and compliance purposes, a doorbell camera and handicap button have been installed at Central Service for visitors on the ground level entrance of the main building. Dr. Scholl presented the MOU between the Health Care Foundation of Cleveland County and the Cleveland County Schools regarding Stop the Bleed kits to be provided by the Health Care Foundation to schools. The MOU was as well received, and the committee praised Jessica Crawford of Atrium Health Cleveland, Michael Chapman, Elizabeth Elementary SRO for their work on the project. The committee concluded with a discussion about the next steps for indoor identifiers to correlate with the exterior door system that is already in place. Additional conversation will take place during the upcoming site visit. The next meeting will follow. Next meeting will follow at Crest Middle School on Tuesday, June the 20th at 12 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch. Dr. Fisher, for superintendent's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'll be very brief. Just have 5 things tonight. I just want to update you on auditoriums. It is an important summer for the auditorium projects. We are doing a lot of paving into this summer phase. I spoke to Mr. Yarborough today, and he really stated that those being was really putting a lot of emphasis on making sure that that paving and that work, site work got done during the summer during this phase. They continue to make good progress on the actual auditorium buildings. The HVAC projects at all of our high schools continue to go well. I was by 2 of our high schools this weekend, and you can tell construction is going on there. Just as a point of emphasis, so everyone knows, the front offices at Burns High School and Crest High School will be closed. The administrators will be working at the middle school over the next couple of weeks. If anybody needs an assistance, they can contact our office and we'll help get them. I believe their phones are still routed to them, but just want to make sure that those front offices, everybody knew those front offices would be closed for a little bit on the HVAC projects. We did have graduations over last weekend, a lot of success. Highlight that over $10 million of scholarship money was awarded to our graduating seniors across the district, so a lot of wonderful things happening with our graduates. Summer programs are off to a great start. We are summer feeding at 4 sites, Turning Point, Kings Mountain Intermediate, Burns Middle, and Shelby Middle School. The Burns Middle School site will close at the end of June. We are in week 2. Today we began week 2 of 3-week elementary literacy summer camp. Dr. Parker and his team are doing a great job with that summer camp. And the last thing, just to put on your radar, it is a busy summer and a little bit of a short summer. Teacher's first work day is Tuesday, August 8th. First student day is Wednesday, August 16th. I've attached to your update packet at your spots an opening school schedule. There's some things that you'll want to put on your calendars for district events there. The time is chairman. The other thing that I have is I have attached to that packet a calendar of committee meetings that will be attached to board docs as well. But those committee meetings with room assignments are attached for your review.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher.
Thank you.
We'll move along to board member comments. Mr. Fitch?
No, sir.
Mr. Spurling?
I'd just like to say I had the honor and the privilege of attending the Burns High School graduation. Really enjoyed it. It was student-led. The students made the majority of the speeches. Everybody was well-behaved. I mean, students were well-behaved. The stands were packed. People were standing on the grass and around the around the edges of the grass, and parents were well-behaved, a lot of celebration, but my wife and I really enjoyed the experience. The only bad thing we could say about the whole thing was the speaker system needs to be replaced, and I think that's part of the field or the press box. So otherwise, we had a very enjoyable experience, and congratulations to all, not just the Burns seniors, but to our Cleveland County seniors.
Thank you. Mr. Blanton?
I want to thank all of our kids for graduating. I appreciate that. I guess I'm going to get back on my angry mode. At the last meeting, we'd done closed on a vote, and Mr. Fitch got to add to it and made a motion to add to it. Then I couldn't do it tonight. So that there being said, I'm going to bring up one more thing. I made a phone call to the state, to the county, and I'd like to see the statute where it says that we have to sell Marion and Graham. Now, I'm not in the meeting, I'm just doing my board meeting comments, but I've got it in public that I'd like to see the statute says where we have to sell those 2 schools. Because Raleigh says we don't have to, they don't have nothing in place. And the county commissioners don't, I called the county and they don't have nothing in place stating that we have to sell them. Our population is growing here in Cleveland County. I've heard that the schools is full. I think they're full. And I feel like that we better hang on because we don't have the money to build new schools. We might have to do some repairs and put some children in them. And so now it's on the floor. I'd like to see that statue or that paper in place that we have to sell them and that we have to put them up as surplus. Thank you.
Mr. Humphries?
Excuse me, been a long meeting. So, during the course of the cell phone policy examinations, when I was doing studying on it, I kept coming back to some things that honestly I've known my entire life, grew up with, Double Springs Baptist Church. So, kind of want to talk about the cardinal virtues: temperance, wisdom, justice, and courage. And of course, the theological: faith, hope, and charity. I'll probably end up on the 6 o'clock news in San Francisco for talking about this, but I'm going to anyway. So, temperance is emotional restraint or self-control. Proverbs 14:29 says, "Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding, but one who has a hasty temper exalts folly." And it's worth noting that folly is translated from the ancient Hebrew word that means someone who does not respect God. Place time between stimulus and response. We don't have to react immediately to things. I used to tell my tennis players that all the time back when I coached. Take a minute and process data through your prefrontal cortex. God gave man cognition and ability to reason. He put us above the animals by doing that. Use it. God gave us a gift from God. Use it. We tend, especially with social media, we peripheral process things using schemas and heuristics. It opens the door for negativity bias and confirmation bias. Think through things. Just take the time to think through them. Wisdom is a capacity to understand from a higher perspective. Biblical, it's capacity to understand from God's perspective. Be discerning and wise about information sources. Trust, look, I tell children this, I've told my children this: trust nothing from social media, especially pictures. 2/3 of the information input to your brain is visual. Pictures and video are so easily manipulated. And this, especially with AI now. Children, especially children going into college, in high school, please pay attention to that. Look for false equivalencies. The classic example of a false equivalence is you got two groups meeting on the street, Group A and Group B, and they both have weapons. Well, Group A have sticks. Group B has hand grenades. It's how it's stated. You have to be aware of that. False equivalencies has been used as a tool of propaganda since Joseph Goebbels did it. They were a master at it in Nazi Germany. So you have to be mindful and strive to distinguish fact from fiction. You know, I know there's a saying out there, it says two sides, and then the truth is there. But look, I've done investigations. I've done more accident scene investigations than I care to think about. I will promise you that however many people saw something happen is how many truths there are. Every one of them believes it, and they believe it in their heart because that's what they saw. So you just have to take the time to sort through everything you can get your hands on. Justice. We have a responsibility to treat others with fairness and respect. And biblically, it goes a step farther and says we have an obligation for protection and care. Now, travesties of justice have happened since Socrates' trial. So how do these things happen? Another classic metaphor is the 1692 Salem witchcraft hysteria trials. Perfect metaphor. As scholars have studied this over the years, They've traced this back to one of the things that started it was a congregational split over a pastor in the church. All the people that went with the pastor that was ousted ended up being labeled as witches. Land disputes were involved in it, and a small group of attention seekers, the teenagers and such. They blew it into a total hysteria. It's a cautionary tale about rushing to judgment that clearly reveals the danger of drawing conclusions ahead of evidence and dispensing with the rules of evidence and fair procedure. The result of this was 20 men and women were executed. Hundreds were jailed. One 8-year-old child went insane in jail. Now, this was 16. This don't happen today, I hope. Strength is the capacity to dig deep and discern greater truth and meaning. Seeking out light is hard to do. It's hard and challenging, especially in today's environment, especially with social media, especially with television. There's nothing but darkness out there. This requires all the above: temperance, wisdom, and true commitment to justice. Look, social media and television give Satan the best tools in history to spread darkness through false witness, deceit, fear, groupthink, and it preys on man's desires to belong to a social group and be validated. Look, fitting in and spreading darkness is as easy as click and share and send. So, in conclusion, and this is another important thing for young people particularly to understand, the only things we as humans have control over and power over are our thoughts and our impulses. Let that sink in. That's all. Use temperance between stimulus and response, and don't rush to judgment. Wisely consider all available perspectives and evidence. Seek justice from God's perspective. Have the strength to stand on your own conclusions and convictions. Above all else, always consider everything you say or do in the light of the 3 theological virtues, those virtues that were gifted to us by God. Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 13:13, and now these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Thank you.
Mr. Grigg?
Yeah, I had one statement to say, but I'm going to have to say more now. For one, I would like to say congratulations to all the graduates in Cleveland County. The other thing is I received a email from a teacher at Burns, and I want to reflect on two different emails that he sent out. One was that he was a Burns High School graduate, and he wanted to share his thoughts on the prank. He said, "I'm sure you've already had opinions, but I just wanted to voice mine as one of the teachers whose classrooms was ransacked during the so-called prank. Sticky substance that was poured all over my floor. Each student's desk was flipped over. Glitter and toilet paper were scattered around the room, among other disruptions of school and personal property. Custodians, along with other teachers, assisted in cleaning up the mess. In fact, the custodians worked tirelessly the entire day to attempt to clean as much as possible." Now, that's the letter that he sent me in response to what happened. Then a couple of weeks later, he sent out another one, and it said, "I would like to thank you for standing up for the teachers who were affected by the vandalism at Burns High School. By not being quiet and letting your voice be heard, it is now abundantly clear who really cares for our teachers and students. While it seems that this matter will never be solved, I am glad that you stood up in the face of adversity in order to adequately support the teachers and students of Cleveland County Schools." Now, somebody asked me tonight, why I was even on the board. This is why I'm on the board. When somebody tells me that they needed help and they were glad that we stood up to help them out, this will always be my answer. And I will always stand up for Cleveland County. You know, we are much bigger than one school system. We have 15,000 students. I'm not going to stand up just for one section of Cleveland County. I will stand up for the whole county. So this is why I ran for the school board. And with that, I'm done.
Mr. Bridges? Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to commend every employee, every teacher, every staff member, everyone here at the central office on a successful school year. We had kids graduate. We had kids improve. We had kids who excelled in the classroom, who excelled on the athletic fields, who excelled in the CTE programs. The nature of this business is to educate young people, prepare them to graduate, enter the workforce, or continue their education. And job well done to superintendent, everyone down from there to everyone that played a hand in that. Several people asked me why I was so quiet at the meeting a couple weeks ago. Well, learned a valuable lesson years ago, that if you don't have anything good to say, you don't say anything at all. It's there's processes in place that we as a school board, as Board of Education, have to follow. And what happened at Burns was not right. What happened at Burns was corrected. What happened at Burns could not be corrected even further because of actions taken on social media, in the paper, on news channels. There's 9 members of this Board of Education. The actions of a few put the rest of the 9 at risk for liability. Again, that's my opinion. You can take it for what it is, what you want it to be. And when I ran in 2020, I had no support from anybody that was on this board at the time. Guarantee you that.
I'll admit it.
Guarantee you that. And for me to sit up here and continue to come in here month after month, I don't do it just because I want to. I don't do it because you think that I'm doing it to make somebody mad or to differ in opinion or political status. For me, Cleveland County Schools provided a sound education. It allowed me to further my collegiate career in education and athletics. So, and it has played a significant role on both of my children. And for me, serving on this school board is giving back to this county. And as you can tell, I'm a big guy. I got a broad back, and I learned playing football. I can handle what everybody throws at me. If you don't like how I vote, I'm sorry. There's going to be half of you that like it, and there's going to be half of you that don't like it. And if the way I vote, I make the best sound decision for how I feel and what's best in my opinion. And if there's other board members that disagree with it, I'm sorry, but I really don't let it bother me. It's not your decision to make, it's my decision to make. And if how I vote keeps me from getting reelected in the next cycle, then that's it. But I can tell you what, you can, you need to be careful. Need to be careful how you play it. You got people out here that's for the system. You got people out here that's not for the system. So choose how you want to play it. But for me, I come every month to do a service to provide the best that I can do and help support the ones that do this for a living. Thank you.
Mr. Shores.
It's been a long night. Congratulations to all the graduates, and I hope everybody has a wonderful summer.
Well, it's time to say a few things. I'll address the facilities situation first. I understand if you're in the Marion or Graham zone that you don't like the idea that those schools closed. They were excellent community schools when they were here, but they served their time, they served their purpose. I was able to go to the closing ceremonies for both. Especially enjoyed the one at Graham where they talked about the spirit of Graham. The spirit of Graham continues on, and they did a good job with that. With this facility study, you cannot take one piece of data and try to extrapolate that into a whole plan. First of all, these folks were paid $249,000, not $300, not $600, not $400. I've heard, I don't know how many different numbers. It was $249 and some change. They actually didn't spend their whole budget. Imagine that. But these folks take the data, they take multiple sets of data from the county, from the cities, from the municipalities here, and do their projections based on history, and then they project that out. There's been a lot said about Jefferson being overcrowded. Well, did y'all know there's going to be 3 less classrooms in that school next year because the population's going down? Just happens to be a big class this year. So Jefferson will have less people in it next year. Nobody said that. Nobody seems to care about that. The Shelby schools were about 75% occupied beforehand. They're about 85 to 90% occupied now, which is right in the sweet spot. Cleveland County Schools still has 3,000 open seats across the district. And it's not worth going out and buying or building new schools when we have open seats. And nobody wants to say it, but it's cheaper to move a line on a map than it is to build a $30 million elementary school. I'm not saying that that's going to happen next week, but at some time in the future, this board may have to make that decision. So that's why we are where we are on the facilities. On the Burns High School prank, I mean, I think we've all about heard enough of that one. Granted, the kids did more than they were supposed to do. Hopefully when they got home, maybe their parents paddled them. I don't know if you paddle a senior anymore or what, but they went beyond what they were promised. But there are certain ones that when that information started coming in, instead of following policy and giving the superintendent a chance to investigate and do what he needed to do, they withheld information. Withheld it for several days. And instead, they went to the news media to try to drum up some kind of conspiracy, some kind of vandalism or whatnot. And I know y'all can believe whoever you want. You can believe what you saw on social media. You can believe me, whatever. Most people are probably not going to change your mind, but maybe I just need to say it to get it off my chest. I will say, I think the principal up there has done a fine job. That's my opinion. Burns High School you can tell a difference when you walk through the school. It is different now. They have a sense of community. They've done well. I think they've had 4 championship folks in athletics. They had the highest GPA student in the county as a Burns graduate. Burns is doing very well. And I think a lot of that is a result of the principal that's up there now and her leadership. So I'll stop right there. Congratulations to the seniors. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I think I heard Sperling.